A lot of the music I cover on this channel was made in the 1970s. The 1970s, in terms of popular music, rock music, whatever you want to call it, was an era of extravagance and then drawing in. Rock and pop musicians were allowed to experiment, and you had progressive rock, jazz rock, and even some of the classic rock bands were pushing the envelope in what you would expect to hear on a record that was selling in large numbers. Towards the end of the 70s, all these styles draw in. Here in the UK, progressive rock seems to be replaced by punk rock, which moves away from the virtuoso ethic of progressive rock. In the States, the wild jazz rock of bands like Weather Report and Return to Forever, Al Di Meola, Mahavishnu Orchestra, all draws in as those musicians move over to the sort of disco craze that is going on at the time. Once those musicians start to work in the world of disco, they are then picked up by the future pop stars of the 1980s and utilised not only for their playing ability and writing ability, but also for their production ability. This ushers in an era which I believe is the greatest era of popular music. This is where we get heavyweight pop songs. They are the best pop songs that have ever been produced on the whole. You know, the 1960s, early 60s, we can see a similar era, but I think even then those records don't really compete against tunes by Michael Jackson or Whitney Houston or Prince or Lionel Richie or Madonna. And Madonna is the artist that I want to discuss today. And this has been promoted by a video that was made by Academic Agent, who's a YouTuber that covers political and cultural matters. I've already reacted to him already on a previous video. On here, I'm going to react to a video he recently did where he said that Madonna had never really produced any bangers. And we are going to be discussing bangers today. And I'm going to further my discussion on bangers over the next few videos. So what do we mean by bangers? These are songs that really kick. They have great hooks, great beats, and they just make you feel like, yeah, you know. And his claim was that Madonna had never done this, with artists like Cyndi Lauper and a whole bunch of other artists that he listed had. Now, I believe that it's absolutely it's just absolutely completely wrong. And actually, in terms of quality songwriting bangers, I would say Madonna was hitting heavier than anybody else at that time. So with that sort of difference of opinion, which is fantastic, it's fantastic, I thought I would do a video discussing this. So here we are. But first, because I do love so many of the songs of Madonna, I thought it would be fun to take one of those songs and rework it in the sort of Andy Edwards style. So I drafted in a few mates and my daughter on vocals. And one of the first songs that she did that I really liked, I can remember thinking, oh, actually, this is really catchy. And I'm not the sort of person who would like an artist like Madonna, especially when she just emerged. But when she came out with Into the Groove, I just thought it was so catchy and up and bouncy, and it was a great bit of songwriting. So here, if you can indulge me for a little bit, is mine and my daughter's and my friends' reworking of Into the Groove. Into the groove, you gotta groove. Get up on your feet, step to the beat. Get into the groove, boy, you gotta prove your love to me. Yeah, get up on your feet, yeah, step to the beat, boy, what will it be? A revelation, dancing around you, feel the sweet sensation. We might be lovers if the rhythm's right. I hope this feeling never ends tonight. When I'm dancing
Step to the beat, boy, what will it be? I can't hear myself. I can't hear myself.
So we all enjoyed doing that, and I don't believe you can do that unless you've got a good song to hang it all onto. Into the Groove is a great song. Now, before I get to sort of my evaluation of Madonna's songs and how good they are, let's put a little bit of background to this. Madonna emerges around about 1983. She's in New York. She is sort of associated with experimental film art. You know, she's involved with quite an artistic movement that's happening in New York at that time. And she associates herself with that, and she associates herself with that throughout her career. She dates at one point the artist John Basquiat, I hope I've pronounced his name correctly, who is one of the most foremost painters in the 1980s, succumbing to AIDS towards the end of the 1980s because of his drug use, and I believe Madonna left him because of his drug use. So Madonna's not just coming out, she's not just a pop starlet, she's got an aesthetic, but it's not coming from rock and roll, it's coming from art, and I find that very interesting. When she gets signed up, she emerges in a way which is, it seems very shallow on the surface. She's this sort of little pop starlet, right? She looks very trendy, she's very cute, she's overtly sexual, and when she first comes out, she, if you remember, gets sort of marketed as this sort of boy toy. We had this thing, the toy boy. She's like the boy toy, very Lolita-esque, very Marilyn Monroe-esque. In pop music, we could see that the sort of Hollywood film star trope is there right at the beginning with Elvis Presley, but with female pop stars, it takes a while, and we really can look to Blondie as being the sort of Marilyn Monroe 50s sex symbol embodied in popular music. But of course, Blondie are also emerging out of that New York scene, out of CBGBs, and they are also linked, I think, with this more sort of artistic, sort of conceptual art approach to pop music than the sort of virtuoso jazz rock fusion prog approach. Okay, and Madonna seems to be the commercial outcome of that thinking. Michael Jackson has moved to becoming one of the biggest stars in the world. You know, at the end of the 70s, he's perhaps the biggest black pop star in the world by the mid 1980s, he's just the biggest pop star in the world. And I think conceptually, Michael Jackson's negotiation of that is very interesting. And I think Madonna does the same thing. By the mid 80s, late 80s, Madonna is the biggest artist in the world. Now, if we go back to the 70s and say, who are the biggest artists of the 70s? We're going to say Led Zeppelin, perhaps. I don't know. What else could it be? Elton John. It's going to be a long time before we get to a female artist that's empowered in that way. Same in the 1960s, same in the 1950s. If I said I think Madonna's the biggest artist of the 1980s, many people would accept that. And part of that comes from her experimental nature linked to a certain idea of feminism, which is empowering in herself, especially harnessing that sort of sexual energy that comes from the female pop star that in the past has sort of been utilized to almost like keep that person down. Madonna utilizes it on her own terms, and I don't think anybody had really done that before, not at that level. Her first album comes out in 1983. Now, what's interesting with the first album, it's produced by a guitarist called Reggie Lucas. Now, Reggie Lucas was first emerged as a jazz rock fusion guitarist in Miles Davis bands in the mid-70s. I believe he plays on Live at the Philharmonic. I'm not sure which albums he plays on. It's right towards the end. But he is working in that scene. He's coming out of the jazz rock fusion movement. And so the production is coming from that movement with Madonna. And then she is coming from this sort of New York artiness. And I think when you put those two things together, it's more powerful in a way than what Michael Jackson's doing, or Prince, who just brings all those in one package together, although Prince is pretty compelling as well. Very similar in trajectory to Madonna. Now, is Madonna a virtuoso singer, performer like Michael Jackson? Well, yes and no. She's a very strong singer. She lacks the sort of soul of an Aretha Franklin or Whitney Houston, but she's got a deep voice which is very powerful. When you try and sing some of the songs aren't easy to sing. The melodies are quite convoluted in certain places. They require a singer to deliver the song. She has a multiplicity of voices, and of course, as a performer, she's unparalleled. You get her on stage. I can remember when what was her film called? It was Truth or Dare, and then they renamed it. I saw that at the pictures when it came out, or the cinema, as I should say, for the international audience. When I saw it at the cinema and the first scene came out and she walked out and performed it with her dancers, it was breathtaking. And that has almost become the blueprint for every single pop star now. So on this first album, you end up with Reggie Lucas producing. It produces incredibly strong songwriting. I believe a track like Borderline is a great song with, this is all subjective academic agent, but I think if you look at the melody and the way that works and the chord progressions and the production and her vocal delivery and where the hooks reside, it's absolutely incredible. Plus, it features a killer bass line from jazz rock virtuoso Anthony Jackson. Now, as she goes in to do her second album, they then pull in the heavyweights, Nile Rodgers. So this is basically Chic. Now Chic is a product of the jazz rock fusion era. After having a ton of hit records, they are pulled in the same way that Michael Jackson pulled in what was his name? Rod Temperton from Heatwave, who had also made Boogie Nights. You have to understand where the talent's coming. Then you got the Brothers Johnson. There's a whole bunch of talent in the late 70s being pulled through. And Chic with Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, and Tony Thompson on drums, and a whole host of different artists are pulled in for albums like Let's Dance by David Bowie. And in David Bowie's case, produces his biggest pop success in the 1980s, really. And for someone of my age, the Let's Dance single is what represents David Bowie to me, to be honest. And Nile Rodgers comes in and produces her second album, which I believe is called Like a Virgin. Now, that album, he decides to record it in much the same way as old Motown, albums were made. The band's in the room and they play live. The orchestration is quite simple, and that really works, something that you would never get nowadays on a pop album. And tunes like Material Girl and Like a Virgin, these are incredible songs. Of course, the Material Girl video, she comes out and she pays homage, let us say, to Marilyn Monroe. And I think any other artist couldn't have pulled it off. She pulled it off because she was so obviously modelled on Marilyn Monroe, but she was so obviously Madonna. And there was a different vibe that she had to Marilyn Monroe, whereas Marilyn Monroe is very innocent and sort of wide-eyed sort of sexuality. Madonna's all-knowing. And so when she's talking about, just going out with people for their money and all that type of thing, she pulls it off. There's a different vibe there. This, sets the world on fire. So what would be Madonna's strong points for me as an artist? Well, for me, she's been involved in the creation of a whole host of incredibly iconic songs, which for me are incredible. We'll touch on that in a minute. But also, she's a good singer, and the limits she has as a singer mean that her voice is incredibly recognizable. Madonna's voice straight away. She tends to sing pop songs. They are related to disco pop, which has that sort of jazz funk thing in there, but she doesn't have a soulful voice, and that creates a fantastic tension with what she does. Those two things together, I think, combine in a really compelling way. But she's got a strong voice and she can deliver a song. As a performer on stage, she's untouched, and her vision of what a pop performer does is quite incredible. When she came out with the sort of the Vogue tour, was it, where she had the sort of brassiere with the points on it, one of the most iconic images in 20th century music. I can remember we sat around the television when that was televised, and we all sat there watching it because it was the Madonna tour. And then she came out and it was so overtly sexual. It seemed to be knocking a certain barrier down, which was combined with the fact that AIDS was happening at the time. And we had to learn as a society to talk about sex in more real terms. And she seems to be in that sort of post-AIDS world. And she seems to embody that in a way that no pop star has ever done before. If you think of videos like Justify My Love, and then later on she did things like The Sex Book, this is really groundbreaking and seems quite extreme to us now as our morality has become more conservative in a way since then. I believe her biggest strength is the way she reinvents herself. And she reinvents herself by working culturally. She works out culturally what she thinks is going to happen next. Now, a lot of the time, she then instigates this. So, the whole Vogue thing, that was a dance style that was based upon the way models act on the catwalk, or when they're being photographed. And she then embodies that. It brings in a sort of gay culture thing into that. She's, with Justify Your Love, she's pulling on a whole art scene which would be personified by photographers like Robert Mapplethorpe. I could see all these references in there. She has explored the imagery of Che Guevara. She's explored line dancing. She's on every sort of cultural fad, really, but she's able to pull those out and reinvent herself every single time. Her personality has to be so strong to do that. Back when I was working in the sort of dance music remix world, I was also involved in a lot of the sort of Bhangra and Indian popular music that was going on in the UK at the time. And there was this thing called The Sounds of the Asian Underground. Now, that album came out, The Sounds of the Asian Underground. My friends played on it, and my friend actually produced that album. And that landed on Madonna's lap at some point, and she did the whole Ray of Light album inspired by that album. So the fact that I was involved in a scene that was happening, when would this been? I suppose early 2000s in the West Midlands here, working with artists like Nitin Sawhney and Talvin Singh, and there were two artists that spotted that. One was Bjork and one was Madonna, and Ray of Light explores that. So I saw that up close. I think her ability to reinvent herself is really like a female David Bowie, and she seems to operate in the same sort of way as David Bowie. David Bowie's a great singer, but he does not have a soulful voice, but he pulls from, with the Thin White Duke period, he starts to pull from rhythm and blues. And again, his voice within that context has a great tension. That's why Let's Dance does not sound like a Lionel Richie track or a Prince track, because of David Bowie's voice. But when you listen to the Steve Ray Vaughan's incredible bluesy guitar playing, Tony Thompson's insane funky drumming, and the whole vibe of that is it's so American black music. That's what it is. Madonna does the same thing. So I think when we look at her achievements as an artist, I can sort of outline some of those and see that she's a heavyweight. So why is she not regarded as a heavyweight? Well, the reason is because we don't see her as a virtuoso musician. Prince is a virtuoso musician. Lionel Richie is a virtuoso musician. By virtuoso, I mean able to play their instrument well, know their music theory, able to write songs from the ground up, all these things. Virtuoso is probably not the right word, but a highly skilled musician and composer, songwriter. And even Michael Jackson had an awareness in the studio, so musical, that he's almost directing everything from his voice. Madonna is not that. She's involved in the songwriting, however, and we have to give her credit for that, and she pioneers that in a way. Now, when we look at someone like Taylor Swift, everyone says she's a songwriter, when actually her involvement in the songwriting is basically the lyrics and the ideas for the songs, maybe a few chords here and there, and I'm sure Madonna's been involved in that as well. Now, what's interesting for me is I can remember reading a Madonna interview, and I think this was it was pointed out in the Mahavishnu book, the greatest band there ever was, the Walter Kolosky book. He quotes it, where she name checks the Mahavishnu Orchestra in an interview. She said her older brothers were listening to all that stuff. She gets the name wrong. I think she calls it the Maharishi Orchestra. But it shows that she was coming up in the 1970s, and it shows the musical goings on that she was influenced by. And I hear it in the music. So before we finish, because I don't want this to be a massively long video, let's have a look at some of those songs. So for me, the greatest song that she did in terms of the singles, I haven't gone into the deep cuts that exist on her albums, but I find Like a Prayer absolutely phenomenal as a song. It's an incredible pop song. It builds almost in a Stairway to Heaven style. The subject matter is both sexual and religious. It's the essence of American popular music. It's the sacred and the profane, and she's right in that territory. It builds up. The bass line's incredible. The playing is incredible, and when the gospel choir kicks in, it's just it's an incredible piece of music. I absolutely love that tune. Earlier on, things like Papa Don't Preach and Borderline, and what else did we have back then? Into the Groove. I think these are all really, really strong songs, and things like Papa Don't Preach, I'm in double deep, Papa Don't Preach. There's your hook. I be losing sleep. Then she lifts it, but I'm letting my mind and keep it, baby. If you can't see that, that's an incredible hook, and what she's doing, it's not just a chanty vocal, it's not just a riff. This is proper songwriting. I think Like a Virgin is a killer song, and then we get into the period where she starts to change what she's doing, and we get tunes like I love Music, I love Vogue. I think Vogue is one of the greatest pop songs ever written, and the hooks, the banger-ness, I mean, it's like it embodies banger-ness. Vogue does. Now, if for me to really get into this and explain why it is, I am going to do a video, or I was thinking of doing a video. I suppose now I'm saying it, I've got to do it. I've been thinking of doing a video where I go through the 10 things that make a banger. So I can identify these criteria. You could recognize them, go, oh yeah, they do that. And then we can point it out in various songs. And I might take, a couple of incredible songs, a couple of Madonna songs, and just go through and explain why they were so massive, why people loved them, and why they went #1 all over the world. Now, I think either academic age is just not his thing, because a lot of the stuff he listed was much more British in origin. It was much more quirkier in a way, and he's interested in sort of that British culture thing, as am I. But I wonder whether Madonna's a little bit too American. But I also wonder whether he's been influenced by this idea that she's not a heavyweight. She's not a Prince. She's not a Lionel Richie. She's not a Michael Jackson. I think she is. Now, I have been doing a bit of research, and I thought it would be interesting to just go and look at what she's done more recently. And I checked out a number of tunes she's done more recently. And of course, with the sort of sliding quality that's happened generally in popular music, it's not in the same league. But in 2015, 10 years ago, she brought out a tune called Bitch, I'm Madonna. And I thought, that sounds like a horror show. Oh, let's check it out. And at that point, she would have been in her late 50s. And I thought, late 50s, her writhing around doing all the Madonna stuff, I don't think I'd take it, especially on this. So I put the video on, and I have to be honest, I was won over by it. Even though it's so arrogant, even though she's saying she's bitch, I'm Madonna, she is Madonna. And there's nobody like her. This video is shot in one scene, one all the way through shot. There's been a lot of videos like this, but this one's epic. As she walks down corridors, climbs stairs, goes here, there. She's snogging blokes, she's snogging women, she's dancing. And throughout this, you see famous people are coming in. People like Beyonce are coming in and they're joining in the video. Why? Because it's Madonna. She's making the point that she is Madonna, and she's doing all the things in this video that you expect Madonna to do. And as I looked at her, I thought, you are one of a kind. There's never been anybody before you, and there's never been anybody after you. And she can pull this stuff off in late middle age because she is Madonna. It's like Mae West when she made that film Sextet when she was like about 80 years old. She still came out being Mae West because Madonna's lineage goes back to people like, Jean Harlow and Mae West. She's iconic. Now, the reason why she's been around for over 40 years is because the songs are so strong. I think I am going to leave this one here. And we will come back to this at a later date. This is like an introduction to other things I want to do on this video, where rather than just talking about the virtuosity, I want to start to look at the other things that make music great. And I think Madonna is a great place to start. I've always loved her. I think she's great. I had her greatest hits when I was younger, and I had her video, all the videos. I thought she was a great pop star, and I still do. If you enjoyed this type of video, stick a like on it. If you want to see more like this, click subscribe. And if you want to see me go deeper into this, I will. And so click subscribe. You can support me over on Patreon, become a free member or a paid up member. You can support me here by putting some money into the PayPal tip jar, or you can become a membership of this channel. They all do different things, and I'm sure if you do like what I do, it's a way of supporting me. So that's it really. Check out the links in the video, and thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Travel far in a lonely bar, in my bed at night when I'm out of sight. They call it fire.